Okay, welcome to technical session number 35, where we are going to be discussing Windows networking today. Just remember, there is no more 10.01 material. We are strictly in 10.02 now at this point. And for this particular technical session, we're going to be talking about configuring Windows networking, both in a small environment as well as an enterprise environment. We're going to be talking about how to differentiate between administrative shares and network shares. We're going to start looking at how to recognize and establish network connections, which we've kind of gone over this before. It's pretty straightforward, so that one's a pretty quick and easy section. And configure network card properties as well. So, in a Windows environment, there are typically three types of networks you're going to want to choose from. You're going to have your work group, home group, and domain. And depending on the situation you're in, will pretty much determine which one of these you would want to use, either in your home, small office, or a more enterprise setting. First one being work group. Let's see here. Stephen, can you read for us, please?
Hey, I'm sorry, my phone's going off in the background.
No worries.
It's work groups. Work groups are the most basic and simple of the three work groups. Did you want me to read the whole thing?
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay. Work groups are also like centralized control over the network. All systems are equal. There is no server peer-to-peer. By default, all window computers are on the network are assigned to the work group called work group. Every computer on the network needs the same work group name to be able to share resources, files, internet access, etc. Each computer must maintain a list of usernames and passwords for all the users in the work group. And there are typically very few computers, a max of 20 in work groups.
Thank you, sir. So work groups, we can get up to a maximum of 20 computers. But does anybody remember the number that we mentioned earlier, which you should try not to exceed in a peer-to-peer network?
10.
10. Very good. Yeah. So we should try not to exceed 10, but you can technically have up to 20. From an IT administrator perspective, what's the big nightmare in here?
No central troubleshooting a location, like no domain to tie everything back to.
There is that. I'm thinking of a maintenance perspective.
Oh, no centralized that too, no centralized place to do all of that, like no server to administer all their updates and all that good stuff.
Very good.
You got to configure everything like one by one if you have
username, password. Yep. No Active Directory to do all of that for that.
Yeah. Yep. So say passwords expire every 3 months. You have 20 computers. Every username and password must be maintained and updated on every single computer. So that's 400 passwords that an IT personnel would have to update every 3 months. Sounds really tedious, doesn't it?
Microsoft is trying to make it better, though. Now with the email stuff, you can set everybody as a child account, which is one of the things I wanted to revert, because my domain is getting kind of tedious right now. So I want to go down to work group. Yeah.
Gotcha. But again, this is on the work group. This is also as of 5 years ago.
True.
So 11.01 will likely update this information. So the generic work group name that you have will just be called work group. You can update it if you so choose, but the default is just work group. Home group. Rahel, can you please read this one for us?
Home group, created for home use with a small number of users to facilitate the easy sharing of files and printers. It connects a group of computers using a common password, or you can choose not to use a password. No special usernames required. It shares Windows libraries with its content, music, pictures, videos, not specific folders. Home group has its own applet on the control panel. Home groups requires Windows 7 or above.
Thank you. So essentially, home use, small number of users, allows for easy file sharing, printers, videos, and various media like that. And it has its own little applet in the control panel. Pretty straightforward, right? Here's what the home group applet looks like internally, and you can select the very specific types of media or things you would like to share with the home group, because you may not want to share your documents with everybody that lives in your household or on your network. You may just want to share music and videos or pictures or printers or what have you. So you can select the types of media you wish to share. And then lastly, let's speak about the domain. JR, can you read first, please?
A Windows domain is a type of client-server network. It is implemented on a larger private network, such as a corporate or a college network. The domain okay, sorry about that. All right. A Windows domain is a type of client-server network. It is implemented on a larger private network, such as a corporate or college network. The domain forms a logical group of networked computers controlled through a centralized directory database of users, account information, and security policies for the entire group of computers. The Windows server controls the network using the directory database service called Active Directory. One of the benefits is users can log on to any computer on the domain using the same domain account.
Thank you, Jim. So essentially, there's a directory of usernames and passwords. It doesn't matter which computer I sign on to. I'm able to sign on to others using my same sign-in and password. It carries over to all other groups on the domain. It allows for a much larger group of computers, not just a maximum of 20, and not for just simple file sharing reasons. With, I want to share just pictures or documents or all that kind of fun stuff. So it allows for a much greater level of control and a much greater amount of computers on each individual network. Plus, it's utilizing a client server type sharing environment, as the other two were using a peer-to-peer. There was no such single device that was used as your server or the client. Each computer essentially is both. Where on this scenario, you actually have a computer that would be designated as a server or a dedicated server itself, and then you would have clients that would utilize the resources of those servers. Questions so far? All right. And on a domain, obviously you would use a directory called Active Directory. Very powerful tool, really helpful on local domains. So on a work group, how would you share files? Well, we've already done this in some of our systems where we've gone in and you go into the file properties and you set in each of them on the sharing tab, and you've got your advanced options and whether you want them to be able to just read it, to be able to edit it, or be able to actually execute from said files. So you could actually set the level, and you could set this for yourself, your group, which would be on your domain, and then everybody else. So you have 3 levels of share you can set up. We've done this in Linux and Coursera. That basically comes back to this. We've also done it with Windows and Coursera, but this is a situation where we would be utilizing that. Questions so far? Do you guys remember doing the lab on this? Did it like, was it like a week or 2 ago? Okay. And I know Coursera's got one as well. All right, so if you want to locate shared folders or shared files, you would go into your drives. You could look into your shared folders and then shares, and it will give you a list of shared drives, files, and such that you are able to access that would be on the server or other people's computers. All right. Administrative shares. Greg, can you read for us, please?
Administrative shares. Administrative shares are created on servers running Windows on the network for administrative purposes. These shares can differ slightly based on which OS is running, but they end with a $sign to make them hidden. There's one for each volume on a hard drive, C $, D $, and so forth, as well as admin $, the root folder, usually C Windows, and print $, where the print drivers are located. These are created for use by the administrators and usually require administrative privileges to access.
Excellent, thank you. So pretty straightforward. Administrative shares are for administrative use. Quickest way to identify them is the $sign at the end. If you ever see the $sign at the end of a file, that is an administrative share file or administrative file. And that would be hidden from standard users. And they wouldn't be able to access it either. So one of the biggest takeaways to remember is looking for that $sign. Questions? All right. Network shares. So these essentially exist on the network, so they may be in different locations or what have you, but we can do a fun little thing called mapping the drives or mapping the folders or whatever so that they appear local to your system. So like I may share one of the drives attached to my computer to everyone in the domain, and then they can actually go in and map it on the network how to get there. But on their computer, it will look like a shared drive. Like I could mark it E drive and share it with everybody in the domain. When they go on their computer and they're looking at my computer and whatever drives are attached, they'll see this E drive, which may be a shared folder that I'm sharing with everybody else. So if you're in a company, it may be that you can only save to the shared drive. So there may be a section on it and they'll have a bunch of files and folders in there based on department or what have you, but you can only save to there. But when you're looking on your computer, it looks like it's a local drive attached to your computer rather than you having to go out and look for that share drive, shared networks, or what have you. You're doing what is called mapping to that drive, where you can enter in that network address, label the drive however you wish, and then so long as you have access to get into that drive, you will be granted access and it will look as if it's attached to your computer. This is called mapping a network drive. This should be found under Windows Explorer under Disk Management. Questions so far? Real quick video. Give me a thumbs up when you see it or when you hear it, just to make sure everybody's got sound.
All right, well, let's jump into it. Here I am on my desktop and I want to make some files available on my laptop. I use this hard drive here, my G drive. It's a 2 terabyte hard drive connected to my desktop, and I want to make these files available on my laptop. Now, let's say these thumbnail images, I'll click into this. These are all my thumbnail images for YouTube. Yes, I take these funny pictures of myself all the time, anytime I want to create a thumbnail. And so here you kind of see a little bit of the behind the scenes of how I do things. Now I want to make these available on my laptop because I don't like just sitting at my desktop creating thumbnails. I'd rather be on the couch and create thumbnails from there. So what I'm going to do is I want to make this entire drive available so I could get to it on my laptop. So what we're going to do is, first off, I'm going to go ahead and right click on the G drive, and what we're going to do is I'm going to go down to the option that says properties here at the bottom of the list. Let's go ahead and click on that, and then this dialog pops up and it has all these different options across the top. What we're interested in doing is I want to share this with my laptop, so we're going to click on the one that says sharing. Within sharing, it says it's not currently shared, but there's an option here for advanced sharing, so I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And within here, I want to click on share this folder, and here the share name is just G because it's my G drive. I could also click into permissions, and here I'm allowing anyone to access it, and I could give full control where people can add new items, they could delete existing items, they could rename things. You could also simply set someone to change, but I'm just going to set it to read so they could read the contents here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on OK.
All right, do you think permission setting on sharing is important? All right, grant files needed by others and block those you don't want them to have access to. Okay. Okay, keep the file original. Okay, interesting.
And then I'm going to go ahead and click on apply. Okay. and then I'm going to close this. So right now I'm sharing my 2 terabyte hard drive. Now what we're going to do is here I am on my laptop and I want to get to that shared location. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up File Explorer, and what you could do is here in search I'm simply going to type in Explorer and it'll pop up right here in my app list, File Explorer. Let's go ahead and open that up. So here's File Explorer, and what I want to do now is at the bottom here I'm going to click on the option that says Network. And within network, what you'll see happen is it now shows all the computers that are connected to my home network. I have 2 machines. I have my laptop, and then I also have my desktop. The files that I want to access are on my desktop, so I'm going to go ahead and click on my desktop, and there it goes. It pops up all the folders that I'm sharing on my desktop. Now what might happen is
What type of Windows network security setting does this user have on both of his PCs?
Hey, Mr. Kelly.
Yes, sir.
So if it's only possible to share folders that are on the same network, like I couldn't share with someone outside of my network unless I gave them access to my network, right?
Well, you would have to give them access, but you could map to those drives as long as you have access.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
But typically, like, yeah, you're only sharing to people in your network for the most part. Falls under the possible, yes. Should you? Probably not. All right, most things on a home works. All right, public versus private networks. Let's see here, Joyce, can you read first, please?
Okay. Public and private networks. When a laptop connects to a public network, the user should ensure that the computer is protected from outside hackers and malware. Windows 7 offers 3 network security options, which are managed by Network Discovery Settings. Public network. Network directory is turned off and you cannot join a home group or domain. Home network. Network discovery is turned on and you can join a home group. Work network. Network discovery is turned on. You can join a domain, but you cannot join a home group.
Beautiful, thank you. So public network. This means it's very open, low level of trust. So it's not going to automatically let you join up with any other computer groups on that network. There's an automatic assumption of low trust because it's public. Cannot tell you, from a security perspective, how many hackers hang out at places like Starbucks and what have you, looking like they're working on term papers or working on emails and all that stuff, just sniffing people's information as they're searching the internet on those Wi-Fi systems. Home group, they're not expecting a domain at your house because usually you're going to need, unless you're somebody like Greg, where, they're expecting a large number of devices on that network. So they're only expecting, a moderate amount, and they're only going to allow you to join home groups, but not domains. And then it's inverted when you go to the office, where you can only link up with domains and not home groups. And this allows you to separate the two pretty easily. So only what you allow to file in your or share in your home group is shared in your home group. And then when you get to your domains, it's only allowing you to share those things in your domain. So it's based off of level of trust and what exactly it is you are sharing. So, but also remember, on a home group, it basically just said, what kind of media would you like to share, right? Wasn't really getting into specific files as much. Whereas on a network or a domain, you're keying specific files and folders you wish to share. Here's kind of what it looks like. You might have seen this screen come on when you connect to an unfamiliar network. This screen pops up on your laptop and says, hey, what kind of network are we talking to here? Basically, what level of trust do you have in this network? Is this at your house? Is this at your office? Or is this just, you know, a coffee shop down the street? And so this will tell your computer what level of security or what level of access it's going to grant. Is this an end-all be-all security measure? No. It's just one of many layers that you're going to be putting in place. And it doesn't matter how much time or how much trust you have with the owners and proprietors of said coffee shop, it should not be labeled as your home. It should only be public. All right, so establishing a network connection. When you first turn your computer on, the computer wants to know, hey, what kind of network am I hooking up with? Am I hooking up Wi-Fi? Am I hooking up to a wired connection, like a LAN? Am I dialing up? Am I connecting to a modem? So you need to kind of let it know. Am I connecting to a workplace through a VPN? So we need to tell our system exactly what kind of internet connection we wish to establish when we're first getting signed on to it, or if we're trying to bring on, connect to a new one. Once we get in, we're starting to establish, we need to let them know. Wi-Fi, point-to-point protocol over Ethernet, or dial-up. So broadband, wireless, dial-up. Let it know, hey, this is what you're going to be looking for. This is where the communication is going to be made. This is where we're setting up a manual one, and we can set up a primary and a secondary. If the primary is not working, it automatically goes back to a backup internet connection. So you can name this network whatever you wish, so that you'll be able to identify it. That's going to be different than the SSID. If you're connected to a wireless network or what have you, you could name it as, my house network or mom's network or, DW's network, wherever it is. You can name this network whatever you choose so that you know that that's the correct one that you would hook up to, and you can link to it through that name. What encryption type do you wish to use? All these settings we can put in place as we wish, or depending on what protocols are being used by that network. Once you've set it up, if you want to use a VPN, you can go in, let it know what type of VPN you're using. Is it ExpressVPN, NordVPN? Hopefully not. Or whatever, Citrix or something like along the lines that your company is using, which is a remote desktop, but you'd have to VPN into it. So you would establish all those protocols in here. Or you could go dial up directly if you wish and get to hear the fun screaming out of the back of your computer. I don't know if they have the audio cards anymore, but it's a good way to tell if it's actually dialing in. Lastly, phone dial in. You have to give it the actual phone number of your internet service provider, area code and all, your username and password, because it's the first thing that's going to go over the line once you make that connection. And then you could name this, super slow internet or whatever you want to call it. All right. Some other properties we need to talk about: your network card itself. So like all the devices on our computers, there are various things that need to be configured excuse me, on the network card in order to get maximum performance out of it. So one of the first things is half duplex versus full duplex versus auto. This is how the information is going to be transmitted over the lines. So half duplex means data can travel in both directions, but only one direction at any given time. So I use all my bandwidth essentially to push all the information out, and then I use all my bandwidth to pull everything down. But I can only use one direction at any given time. So that's half duplex. Full duplex, kind of like a walkie-talkie, yeah. You can either talk or receive. You can't do both. So that's a perfect example. Full duplex, you get a little bit better performance. You can send and receive at the exact same time. So it's going to use certain pins or certain wires on your connection to receive, certain to send. Happens at the exact same time. There's another term on here that is not mentioned, which is called simplex. It's simple, simplex. It can only travel in one direction. That's it. So if it was hooked up to a computer, it could only send on that line. That would be a simplex line. And then you get half duplex either way, but only one at a time. Full duplex, both directions at the exact same time. And then you have auto, which is set essentially to the lowest common denominator, or the, whichever machine, has the lowest settings, then you would come down to be able to communicate with that machine. Or if I sense that another card is set to half duplex, then it would change the way the settings were. So if you have one at full, one at half, and the full one is essentially at auto, but it would default to full. Once it senses the other computer's at half, it's going to shut itself down to half. So it brings itself down to the speed of the other so that they can communicate. Right? Does this make sense? It's basically auto sensing who it's talking to and will change its settings to be able to communicate with who it's talking to.
Fun fact, if you have both of them set manually, say that one of them is set to auto and it's half duplex based on the, maybe the cable or whatever it is, but it's set to half, and you have the other one set to full, not auto, they won't talk.
Okay, based on the restrictions that they have, like the hardware or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
We have plenty of issues with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, even my house, even my home right now, I had that same issue. I changed the cable. Remember I was telling you about it?
Yeah.
Platinum cable. Yeah.
People don't think about cables a lot of times. A cable can bring a network to its knees if it's improperly applied.
Yeah.
I am not a cat.
Yeah, that's ding.
Yeah. I am here live. I am not a cat. All right, so next. Speed. So remember we were talking about Wi-Fi? If you introduce an 802.11b device into an 802.11g network, it slows the entire network down to B so that they can communicate. It's based off of speed. So speed on NIC cards, that happens as well. So your NIC should be running at the highest speed possible, but it needs to be compatible with that network and host. So depending on the type of hardware you're using, your network topologies, like are you using cables, are you using twisted pair, are you using RJ11s, old phone lines? That's going to determine what kind of speed you can operate on your networks. So when you're setting up your duplex, you're also going to set your speed for your networks, Because you can't have one system talking super, super fast and the other one talking really slow. They won't be able to communicate very well. So there actually is some sort of calibration that has to happen here. So when you get into your NIC settings, you have your link speed and duplex, where you can set it your full or half, and then what speed you're operating. But then most often it's set at auto negotiation, where it's going to try to detect what speed they can communicate with and what form of like duplex are they using, half or full. Questions so far on this one? Yes, Golly.
So if you leave it in auto negotiation, it'll just like pick the best speed for that system, or
Typically, yes.
Like-
Not a perfect system, but yes.
Thank you.
So Greg just gave us an example of what would happen. You know, there are cases where it does not negotiate well and it will not communicate.
Okay.
Or basically, if you are set to your max and not auto, and somebody is on a lower speed, you just can't communicate. You'd have to go to auto to talk to the person lower than you.
Yeah. So we can't communicate up, but they can communicate down.
Correct. Yeah.
You know, like I can't make a rabbit run as fast as a Lamborghini, but I can slow a Lamborghini down to run next to a rabbit. Right?
Right.
All right. WOL. Not to be confused with AWOL, but wake on LAN. This is essentially an Ethernet standard. You would have to turn this on your NIC. And if your computer is sleeping, it allows it to send a power pulse to that machine to wake it up over the network. So I could send, what were you saying, Greg?
No, I was saying this is a big, really big pain in everyone's neck. Once, if you get really into your machine, you will be annoyed by this. Very, very annoyed by your wake on LAN, because you will think you have a virus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see that. But it's kind of nice in the IT world, because if people put their computers to sleep, it allows you to wake it up and then run updates overnight, stuff like that, without having to hope that they leave their computers on and all that kind of fun stuff. So it does have its uses.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, in a home network, yeah, don't try that.
Yeah.
Shut it off.
I mean, if you have a NAS or something like that, it's nice, because if you're away from the house, you can still access your files. So having that,
Yeah,
it works.
in the NAS, of course, yeah, for sure. Or server, that server environment. But on your little workstations like mine, nah. You put it to sleep, and something on another device just triggers it. Yeah, it's crazy.
Okay, I could see that. I know we're about break time, but we're only about 2 or 3 slides out, so I wanted to go ahead and push through. Then we'll take our break and we'll come back to async. So a couple more minutes. So wake on LAN, send some specialized packets once it's been established in the NIC, and allows the computer, it allows someone remotely to wake up another computer.
The reason why I mentioned that, though, is because some viruses use the phone home feature.
Yes.
That same issue. So you can have, that's the thing. It's, I'm not going to say 50-50, but it's likely, it's less than likely that you have a virus in some of those cases, or a worm, in some of those cases.
Because that phone home uses that to be able to bypass the stateful firewalls.
Exactly.
Because then the communication is coming from inside.
Yep, and they usually, so if your machine just turns on at like 2 a.m. and you don't have it to auto update at 2 a.m., it's more than likely some phone home application.
Yep. Unfortunately. Although what's funny is like I have the internet in my son's room set to turn off at a certain time and turn back on in the morning.
Nice. Yeah.
And I set it for like 6 a.m. because sometimes he gets up before school and he's, you know, doing some stuff before he gets ready for class or whatever. And then one weekend he was watching a video or something like that. And then his internet got cut off, so it stopped the video. And he's like, oh, whatever. And he like turns off the monitor and he lays down to sleep. And this is like on a Saturday morning at 6 o'clock on Saturday morning. All of a sudden the computer just starts blasting the video to him because the internet finally reconnected. All right. Quality of service. Does anybody remember when we talked about quality of service? Be able to explain it real briefly. They don't have to be we don't have to be experts at it, but just, we're familiar with it. What does quality of service mean?
You don't want me to say anything, right?
Yeah, hang out for just 1 minute, Craig. Gives you a little bit of hint in there, but
Like how good your service is?
You what?
Like how good the service will be? The traffic.
You're knocking on the right door. We're getting there.
You said that.
Nobody? So remember when we were talking about our internet connection, we only have so much bandwidth, right? Like the pipe is only so big, we can only fit so much data through that pipe. So we have to prioritize that data. So if I'm on a video conference with somebody, that bandwidth is going to be far more important than if I send an email, right? Because the email is not going to be overly problematic if it's delayed by 3 or 4 seconds, but my communication with you would have serious quality issues if it was delayed by 3 or 4 seconds, right? We would start to get pixelated pictures. The sound would be breaking up. Maybe the video would stop working, what have you. So we can, in quality of service, we can say, this is your highest priority type of information. This is best effort. So you would have, basically in times of peak use, certain data is more important than others. That is quality of service. That is for us to be able to get the most out of our individual bandwidth. All right. Now, some older devices may still use NIC cards, like actual cards that you would install for network. Or if you're using a specialized type of internet, like if you're using fiber optic or something like that, you might need to have an aftermarket NIC card installed. However, most nowadays are integrated into the motherboard themselves. Unless the onboard one dies, we may need to install a NIC card later, because that does happen. And if you have to install an aftermarket one later, make sure the onboard one is turned off and the new one is turned on. So you'd have to go into the BIOS and make sure the settings are configured properly. Questions? No? Quick quiz. Pause the recording for a moment. Effort to
There's more.
close these things up. Nope, no more. We are actually done. Just wanted to check and see. Yes, there is a difference between half duplex and simplex, because simplex could, like, say you would have one line and that line could only send. That's all it can do. And then you would have another line that would be only receive, and that's all it can do. Half duplex, I could send on that line and I can receive on that line, but only one at a time. And then full duplex is sending and receiving at the exact same time. Does that make more sense? Okay, beautiful. Any other questions?
So quality of service will be like a full duplex?
Quality of service could be any of those, but what it's going to do is it's going to prioritize the type of information you're sending, whether it should be the highest priority and always get premium bandwidth, or if it's best effort where you'll send it when things are slow. So that's quality of service. I think there's like 7 layers or 7 types of quality standards you can set to packets. I'll have to look that one up. Like the lowest being best effort. Like whenever you can send it, you can send it. All right. Any other questions?